A quick word, this episode is recorded back in January with Derek McCormick. He currently has a podcast called Tea Time with the Reaper, and one of the episodes is actually the audiobook version of his book. These are important topics, and while I have been sitting on this episode for quite some time because my desire to revive this particular podcast has been just somewhat thwarted by my own ability to deal with what it takes to produce it. But I really want to get this episode out here. It's really good, and if you enjoy it, you will most definitely enjoy his podcast. So check it out on all the platforms, Tea Time with the Reaper. Welcome to the Less Than Obvious podcast. I'm your host, Jim McDonald. One of the truest quotes from one of my favorite movies is this: how we deal with death is at least as important as how we deal with life. You might be surprised to find that that's a quote from Star Trek 2, but hey, wisdom is where you find it. My guest for this episode is Derek McCormick. He's the owner of Havoc Gear, and he's a trainer in Southern California, but he didn't come to talk about any of that. We sat down to talk about death and the way that we deal with death, and really what's wrong with the way we deal with death. If you're trying to talk about this subject the way I am right now, you might find yourself saying something like, Derek lost his wife to cancer in 2017. But he would correct you. He would tell you that she is not lost. He knows exactly where she is. And he's right. She's gone. She's not here anymore. So Derek's wife, Angela, died of cancer in 2017. And in 2018, he wrote a book about their life together, her illness, and ultimately her death, and really how he's dealt with it all. It's called Tea Time with the Reaper. It's on Amazon, and you should read it, but you're probably not prepared for how you're going to react to it. This is not a morbid episode, and unlike at least a couple episodes of this show, there are no tears. Let's jump into the conversation. You're Derek McCormick.
That I am.
And I wanted to talk to you for a number of reasons. We've known each other for a while, but we haven't spent extensive amount of time talking over the years, I would say.
It's been a lot of crossing paths in the lifting community.
Right. And then DMs and texts and stuff like that.
The friendship of social media.
Exactly. The thing that sometimes seems like it's a whole lot more than it is, and it is, and sometimes it seems like a whole lot more than it is, and it isn't. I feel like this is one that is definitely more than the amount of time that we've spent talking.
Correct.
I think I was not aware that your wife was ill until she passed away.
Yeah, correct. Both prior to her being sick and the first time that she was sick, we kept a lot of it really close. Mm-hmm. Her especially. I was almost like Vera from Cheers. You know, our personal life was our personal life, and our professional life was our professional life. We never really mixed the two. So the first time she was sick, we kept it tight. The second time, we let a few more people know. And then when she died, that's when the gloves came off.
Mm-hmm. And you started being willing and able to talk about it. And that's a part of the reason that I really want to talk to you today was that I think that we both feel that people have a harder time talking about death, even though it's a part of life, than they should. And I think that our Western cultures are particularly bad about it because I think we just maybe don't have context for it, or like.
I think it's almost a little bit more than the Western world. I've actually extended the idea to the almost first world, in that we have had all these advances and evolutions in what we perceive as life, yet don't look at the other side of the coin. Mm-hmm. It's a situation where almost everybody, once you reach a certain age, knows someone who's died.
Right.
Whether it's a relative or a friend of a friend or something like that, there's always, you can name somebody. But we've become so disconnected from the process of dying and then the process of dealing with death afterwards.
Right.
And I understand why, at least I believe I do, and it's wrong. The way we handle it is wrong. We are cheating ourselves, and we're disrespecting the people who are gone.
I think that we we maybe waste the opportunities of the time that they have left by just not being open about how we feel, allowing them to talk about their own situation.
Well, for example, with Angela, and Tea Time with the Reaper, the reason I put that together was twofold. One, to honor her. I view my life in three parts: before her, with her, and now after her. She was and remains the biggest catalyst for me ever, hands down, no comparison. So I need to honor her, but I also need to find a way that her story, the agony and the shit she went through, had some purpose. Obviously, it didn't benefit her, but maybe it can benefit others. So that's why the book is there. And in that, there's a section where I ask people to think about who is important to them. Like if you had to list 1, 2, 3 people, the most important people in your life, or the most important things that you do, whatever is your thing. Now imagine you have 137 days left to enjoy it.
Yeah.
That's how many days Angela had from the minute she was told she had terminal cancer to when she was dead. And a lot of that time was wasted. Wasted in a system that is not designed to support living. It supports profit, but that in itself is a total different podcast.
So at what point did you decide to write the book?
She died in December of 2017. And, it took a couple months to really think about what I wanted to do. And I kept coming back to the idea that this makes no fucking sense.
Yeah.
There's no logic to what happened and how it happened. And because so few people ever spoke to me about death growing up as a child or as a young adult or as I got older, I'm like, you know what? People need to know. They need to know what can happen. And I don't wish it on anybody, but it's going to. Some will be easier, some will be way harder, but it's going to happen. So unfortunately, it seems like I've chosen to be the person who, instead of tapping people on the shoulder, I hit them in the head with a sledgehammer.
Yeah.
It had to be done. And so it took 9 weeks to write it. I am definitely no Pulitzer winner. There's all kinds of spelling errors and grammatical problems and broke all kinds of rules. And I just don't care because the story still impacts people. And the irony is, not only do people really focus on the healthcare component, the psychological component, the depression and mental health and her death and all these things wrapped around it, a lot of people latch on to the love story.
Right. And
which the way in which we met, which is absurd, how we got on, absurd. Like it made no sense. And then for it to end the way it ended, the story just had to be told.
I have said this before, but I so much admire the construction of the book, and that's why it is, mystifying to me that you don't have a deep literary background, because it is. I mean, it's really. I mean, it's a book, but it feels like something else. It feels like more.
Well, it's because it's real.
Yeah,
it's not fiction. It was not planned or plotted. I wasn't looking for where do I put the next twist in. That was just our story from the moment we met to the moment she died in the aftermath.
I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but just the use of imagery in the book is so next level in terms of its impact. Like,
yeah, there's, and I've set it up with 9 chapters. There's 9 images. And the reason I may have mentioned 9 a number of times is that was her favorite number. Every single component in that book has a purpose. And as far as the images go, I've had a number of people ask me, well, why are so many of them dark? Why are so many of them where we can't see you? And I don't want people seeing us. I want people seeing themselves.
Yeah.
I want them to realize that could be them, that what happened to her could be them. Because, there's enough fairy tales out there. There's enough love and light going around on social media and all these other avenues. And I'm trying to bring some balance to that equation. I'm trying to bring some reality to that equation. Things get hard. Shit happens. And people die. Mm-hmm. And until that conversation becomes an everyday conversation for people, it's going to stay hard. And people are going to have to, like your parents, like Angela, are going to have to suffer for no reason other than a system and a society that's failed them in the most important time of their life.
Each vignette in the book is exactly as long as it needs to be and no longer. And I think that maybe people who are coming from more of a literary background, it feels more like poetry or prose in that regard. Things are as long as they need to be and no longer. Mm-hmm. The depth of emotion around it is, I don't know. It's not a long read.
No, most people get through it in about an hour.
Yeah.
Takes me about 3.
Oh. I would imagine.
Reading and I don't get along well. But I also, in our conversations in the past, and hopefully in this conversation here, people realize that I don't mince words.
Yeah.
I get to the point and I try to get there pretty quick because why waste time? I wasn't about to describe the paint on the wall in the hospital room. That's not my role. My role is getting people's focus on what I believe is important.
And because the book focuses so much on the relationship and the connection, the sense of loss is just palpable. I don't know. I can't say enough good things about.
And I really, really appreciate that. And I take zero credit for it. I would not be who I am had it not been for Angela. Period. More than anything and anyone else that's ever come into my world. And how we managed to go 9 years and 4 months with never a fight, never a bad word said to each other, is all about her and who she was and who she allowed me to be, which is one of the reasons why I feel so compelled to share her and her approach to life with as many people as I can. Mm. There's a saying in the book, I want what I want when I want it. And that was her. Mm-hmm. If she wanted to go see a concert, she went to the concert. She wanted to buy a pair of shoes, she bought a pair of shoes. She wanted to go on a trip, we went on a trip. Like, that's just who she was. And a lot of that has to do with how she was brought up and some of the trauma and tragedies that she faced when she was younger. She came to learn death sooner than most. And again, it allowed her to live most of her life exactly how she wanted.
I think that we struggle with, like, what are we waiting for? Mm-hmm. Like, you should absolutely take advantage of the things that are in front of you when you want to do them. It's not like you're not doing it haphazardly. You're doing it driven by like a real desire to have a particular experience or to possess a particular thing or
whatever floats a person's boat.
Right. Yeah.
Like if the only thing they want to do is sit home and watch TV, cool. Enjoy that.
Yeah.
Don't complain that you're not doing X, Y, and Z when you've made the choice to sit home and watch TV.
Right.
But if there's a place that you want to go or a person you want to spend time with, you need to go do that. Recently, a friend, one of their relatives was ill. And I said, look, you need to go. I don't care what anybody else says. You need to go see them. Spend time with them as much as you need. Go. They made the choice not to. And that person died.
Yeah, I did the same thing.
And now you don't get that shot back. You do not get to say the things you wanted to say. And that regret will eat someone alive.
Yep.
So if there's somebody who's, as far as I'm concerned, in your life and they're bringing you down, get rid of them. If there's somebody you want in your life, get with them. Like, just stop fucking around. Time is not your friend, and you don't get more of it.
Exactly. Just the experience of, I had 18 months of loss. That's the way I think about it. Having lost my parents and my best friend just in that short period of time. And the thing that I did immediately was to try to take a better stock of like who was around me and realize which relationships were important and which ones were transactional.
Yes.
And because I saw just all the things that people said about my friend when he died, and I was thinking, if I needed pallbearers, who the fuck would they be? Yeah. And it's taken years to work on that. Not that I'm looking for pallbearers, but
but it doesn't hurt to have the list.
But that idea that who's really important in my life, outside of my family, who is important, and how do I maximize the amount of time that I have to spend with them? How do I maximize the communication with them? How do I communicate to them how I feel about them? And I mean, it didn't happen right away in the real world, but I did start thinking about it, and now I'm pretty upfront. And it can be an uncomfortable conversation to tell somebody, because it seems so serious, to say, look, you're important to me. You're an important person in my life. I value that you're in my life.
But that's the power of words.
Yeah.
Both you mentioned outside of your family, and I have a slightly different take on that. I don't confuse family and relatives.
Yeah.
Just because I share some DNA with you, does not give you a higher or a greater importance in my world than somebody else. My family now consists of one brother and 8 sisters, none of which I'm related to. But they're my family because they're the ones who leaned in when things got ugly. Lots of people, they send their cards or they make a call here and there. These people leaned in. And many of them is because they had been through that same kind of meat grinder. They knew what I was going through before I even knew I was going through it.
So let me ask you this question. How do these people address this issue with you? Because a lot of people are uncomfortable with knowing how to express sympathy without saying, I'm really sorry for your loss, because everybody says that, or they say he or she is in a better place, which sucks because that may not be really true. And, everything happens for a reason. I want to punch all those people in the face every time because it's complete bullshit. It's revisionist history to say that. I'm not a firm believer in fate or everything happens for a reason, because you're always taking a retrospective view on that. And so, yes, things happen in that order, and yes, they worked out in a particular way. But what if they didn't? I mean, anything could have happened still.
Well, as far as going back and thinking, if I changed this would have happened differently. And everybody seems to think that would always turn out to be positive. Well, it's a 50-50 that it would have turned out negative.
It could have gone anyway.
Now, as far as, dealing with the people who say stupid shit, me personally, I shut a lot of them down or simply refused to communicate with them because they obviously didn't get it.
Yeah, a lot of people just say thanks, and that's it. They have no other connection to it because They don't want to not say anything, but at the same time, it's like, this isn't helping at all.
My family, my brother and sisters, they basically just grabbed me, just hugged me, told me they loved me, and asked what they could do. None of this canned bullshit that does nothing but make someone like myself, people going through grief, whether it was yesterday or 10 years ago, make them angry. It makes it worse. It's dismissive.
Yeah.
Again, that goes back to words. People seem to have forgotten the power of them and the meaning of them, both in how they're said, but how they're heard.
Yeah. I think that a thing that people often say too is, let me know if there's anything I can do. It's like, well, I have no fucking clue what's going to make me feel any better. I feel terrible.
Yeah.
I don't have a prescription for you. I don't have anything that you can, anything specific you can do. Be creative.
And a lot of people, a lot of people who, are in that place where, especially if it's been relatively recent.
Yeah.
A lot of times people just want to be left alone. I wanted to be left alone.
Yeah.
I want to be left in my cave. I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to see anybody. And interestingly enough, my brother and sisters, for the most part, ignored that.
Yeah.
Because they themselves had gone through things very similar. And they were going through it themselves. It wasn't their spouse. It wasn't their partner. But it was something somebody that they loved was gone. So they needed me as much as I needed them.
I have never completely understood the impulse of that you had to tell everybody the moment that someone was lost. Someone lost. Somebody passed away. Somebody died. Because what you want to do when you're on the inside of the situation is have that pause, that push everything away, and just like, let me find my feet.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the conversations that Angela and I had, and Angela had with her sisters and her family, was that she didn't want me making the calls. She basically had a few people and said, look, I need you to call this list. I need you to call that list. She was a producer. She produced the shit out of everything, and she was able to do that while her mind was still there, because as it got close to the end, it wasn't.
Right.
She decided who was calling who. She decided what items of hers that she wanted certain people to have based on their aesthetic or an important event that they shared together, those kind of things. We had the time and the luxury to be able to do that once she was home in those last few weeks. She didn't enjoy doing it, neither did I, but we knew it had to be done. Now, those people who someone dies unexpectedly or in some type of accident, if the conversation's never been had, now what? How do you know what they wanted?
Yeah, it's just a mystery. And then you're in a position where people have differing points of view.
Yep. It becomes
on what would be appropriate.
A gigantic mindfuck.
Yeah.
Especially when you probably don't have anything else to worry about.
Yeah, exactly. There's nothing else going on.
Nothing else happening. So, that book, I'm compelled to share her story. I need people to know who she was, the kind of person she was, the kind of person that, she would lay down in traffic for the people who mattered to her, and how quickly she was taken away, and how quickly that can happen to anybody. So knowing that, how do you live your life? How do you move forward realizing that things can shift so quickly? She went from a tiny 10 millimeter tumor in her left breast in February of 16 to being dead in December 2017. How does that timeline work? It doesn't.
No.
It doesn't fall on any of their charts.
No.
That's not to be expected.
With my best friend, he was He was diagnosed in June, and he died December 7th.
Yeah.
And he just, I said before that he was not a good candidate for some of the traditional therapies, and nothing else had any impact at all.
Yeah.
So the die was cast. Toward the end, I think he knew how bad his situation was, and he stopped responding to me. He stopped responding to his mom because he didn't want to talk about it.
He didn't want to talk about it, and I can tell you firsthand through Angela's experience, she did not, and he probably did not want to be any further burden.
Oh, that's exactly. I made the mistake of telling him in the last conversation I had with him on the phone that, boy, it had really, I said, really, I took very much to heart when you told me about it, about the cancer. I was reeling for a couple days, and I'm still very concerned. And he was like, "Oh no, things are going to be okay." And of course they weren't.
And that was more for you than it was for him.
Yeah. Same thing. Me and his mom. Those are the people that he just couldn't. He couldn't. I think I tell myself couldn't bear making it any harder for him. I always like the quote from Fight Club: "On a long enough timeline, the survival rate for everyone drops to zero." Neil Gaiman said something similar. He said, "Everybody's going to be dead one day, just give them time." I feel like some people in our society who should have the greatest grasp on the fact that people die, the people who deal with death more often than the rest of us, let's say doctors and the medical establishment and the healthcare industry, don't do a great job of it. Actually, they do an awful job sometimes dealing with this particular eventuality. Derek and I both faced some frustrations there, and we got into that in this next part of the conversation. Just from my own perspective, getting doctors to talk to patients realistically about their situation is difficult. And what I experienced with both of my parents was that, like with my mom, she had an oncologist who was continuing to give her chemotherapy for something that the chemotherapy was not going to address, and had fostered this sense in her that she could be okay by taking these drugs. Now, I'm not against chemotherapy. I mean, it helps a lot of people, but when there is no hope, then I think that you're taking away quality of life, and you're keeping people from handling their business.
Well, quality and quantity of life are two drastically different things,
right,
that the existing medical system does not look at.
Yeah.
Contrary to what the flyer may say.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, the longer someone's around, the more billing is going to be associated.
Right.
And for anybody who believes they're getting into medicine because they truly want to help people, I recommend they move to a third world country and practice for room and board. If that's really your intent to help people, show me. Don't go to the biggest hospital in the biggest city and have the biggest this and the biggest that when people are dying and dying painfully. It's just... It's a broken system that serves itself. It doesn't serve anybody else.
My wife is a nurse, and she worked in oncology for a number of years. I want to say 7, 8, 9 years, something like that. And her father was diagnosed with cancer while she was working, and she knew what the situation was, and he didn't really want to believe it, and he actually got a significant amount of time. They told him 6 months, and he lived 7.5 years. But there were emerging therapies at the time. He was hooked in with the University Medical Center. They did a lot of work with him to try to give him what really was good quality time for the most part. But when things started to get bad, he, turned to her and said, you knew that this is what was going to happen. And she said, yeah, I'm sorry, I did. And the question I come back to is whether doctors know that, or they just want to convince themselves that it isn't true and that they have the ability to reverse fate, I guess.
From what I saw firsthand, for the most part, it's pinned the tail on the donkey. Most of the stuff that they do is based on historical evidence or what they have seen. Mm-hmm. But there are very few problem solvers in that realm. Mm. In Angela's case, for example, they were having an incredibly difficult time trying to manage her pain. Everybody's individual. Everybody's different. Everybody's body's going to process things differently, different rates, and so on and so forth. Certain medications will work. Certain medications won't. It got to the point where the head of the palliative team came to me asking for my suggestions on what to do.
Well, that's scary. I mean,
who the fuck am I?
Right.
To be giving recommendations to the head of pain management at a very prestigious hospital on how to care for my wife. It makes no logical sense. Problem solving is not something that's being taught or fostered in that system.
Yeah. I mean, I trying to figure out what the logic of that might have been. It's like maybe you're observing more of the reactions to the medications than other people are. That's that'd be the only reason I would ever ask that question if I were a doctor. But I don't know.
Well, speaking on the pain management and the medication, the absolute best that pain was managed is when she came home. Not a single dose of any of the medications, and she was probably on over a dozen at the time, spread out throughout the day. Not a single one was missed.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
So whether it's a lack of staff, a lack of care and concern, whatever the case may be, the bottom line is she got what she needed when she needed it, and her pain management dramatically improved once she was home because she could manage it herself while she could, and I took over when she couldn't.
Mm-hmm. And this brings up an important point, I think, that when a family member is in the hospital or in a situation where a family member is at home on hospice, the family, friends, whatever, that's the only way that things actually get done. An oncology nurse is not going to be there every minute of the day. And there are some inpatient hospices that have people there, but most at-home hospice doesn't have that. And if somebody is just in the hospital for surgery, I would never send or anything. I would never send a family member off to a hospital for anything that required even an overnight stay without the extra person there, I guess.
Absolutely. And there's the interesting thing in that if you have never been through that experience and realized you need someone there, you need that extra set of eyes, that extra person who's caring and making sure that they're getting what they need when they need it. If you don't know, you're going to be at a loss. Mm-hmm. People are going to assume that the professionals, they know what they're doing. They got the white coats on. Mm-hmm. They know how to take care of this person better than I can, because who am I?
Right.
And that's not the case. That's simply not the case. And I understand that people are afraid of hospitals. They're afraid of illness. They're afraid of death. But I hate to break it to them. It's coming.
Right.
Everybody's going to get sick. Everybody's going to die. And if you don't start dealing with that and wrapping your mind around it while you're able to, when you're in it, you're going to be lost.
People think that they're not going to need to advocate for themselves. And then I think maybe some people who put a little more thought into it think that they're going to be able to advocate for themselves. And it just doesn't happen. It doesn't work that way.
If only it did. And here's the thing. And over the last 13 months, I have spent an enormous amount of time talking about illness, talking about death with people I know, with complete strangers. And in many of those conversations, once they hear all the details, if they've, sat down and read the book, I have to remind them that I got off easy. And I say that because my best friend, my brother, Archie, his wife was taken from him in an instant. She was crossing the street to go to work.
Oh, my God.
He has 2 kids.
Oh, jeez.
I had time with Angela. We had time to talk. So if people think they don't have to advocate for their loved ones, they don't have to advocate for themselves, I pray they're right. I know they're wrong.
Yeah. Running back a little bit, talking about the experience with both of my parents, it was very difficult to get their doctors to be honest with them, and it was very difficult for them to get hospice for both of them because the doctors were not willing to say no. Not only do you have 6 months, my mom didn't last 6 days after she was finally given hospice, and my dad lasted maybe 8 or 9 days. And this is resource that should be available. And if doctors just can't say, I'm sorry, but this is where we are, then it just makes things that much harder.
Well, you're asking somebody who probably thinks that they're smart is wrong.
Yeah.
Or there's a potential for them being wrong. You're asking someone who makes money from people being sick. I don't know of any doctors that get bonuses for the less people they see, for the less return visits.
Yeah, that's true.
Doesn't seem to work that way.
That's true. I know. I'm aware that in like Medicare patients, in a couple of instances, one in particular being bladder infections that occur in hospitals that cause people to come back after they go home. That's one place that they are incentivized to keep people out, and make sure that they stay healthy so that they stay away. But otherwise, it's still, it is you get paid for care.
It is fast food.
Yeah,
billions and billions served.
Yeah, and I come from a background of having worked in the HMO world, and I very strongly believe in I have my friends who are still in the industry, God bless you. I believe that they should be nonprofit entities at the very least. It doesn't necessarily solve everything, but at least you're not having to consider shareholders when you're making decisions about people's health.
As soon as money is included in any equation, whether it's healthcare, whether it's lifting, whether it's food, whether it's whatever, it always skews to greed.
Right.
And I definitely don't want to spend the rest of my days, for as many as they are, complaining about that system. Because the only reason that system has been allowed to become what it is because people refuse to deal with the obvious, deal with the reality that they're going to die, and maybe, just maybe, they should have a little bit more control over that. That if they do get to a point where, there are some care options, but they understand that the quality of their life is going to be gone, then maybe they should be allowed to leave.
Yeah. No, I agree with you there. We have a law in California, but my understanding is that not very many people have taken advantage of it.
Well, it's a tricky one in that the law was there and then it was gone and then it was back. So where it is today, I have no clue.
I'm not sure either.
But from what I understand, and I'm not a legal expert, if a patient is deemed terminal, they are allowed to get a prescription to end their life. However, legally, no doctor is obligated to write said prescription.
Yeah.
So while you're dealing with the reality that you're going to die, now you need to go shopping around to doctors to get them to write this prescription, as if you don't have enough on your plate.
Right.
Now, speaking of Angela's case, none of her doctors mentioned that as an option to her.
Not one. They would not be willing to say.
Well, because they're not legally obligated to write said prescription, then they start getting their own personal dialogues and their own personal beliefs bleeding over into the care of their patients.
And I think it requires 2 doctors as well. So I think you have not just one, but 2. It has to be like countersigned or something.
Because that makes it even easier for someone facing the reality that they're going to die.
Yeah.
Why do we have to make it harder? It should be easier.
It should be easier.
But again, that is a system created by people, and the people who choose to ignore it, ignore their own death, ignore the situation that could surround their death, they just let it go. They'd rather have their head up their ass and not worry about it until it happens. But when it does happen, they have no idea how to deal with it. You know, if we circle back to lifting, most competitors, even guys and gals going to the gym just for their own personal enjoyment, visualize their lifts.
Right.
They visualize, okay, this is my setup. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And then they make the lift. Whereas if their headspace isn't right, you know, those PRs, those maxes aren't happening.
Yeah. They failed before they actually get to the bar.
This is no different. And this, as far as I'm concerned, is the most important thing in our existence. Because if we are just meandering down a road, not knowing where we're going, what kind of journey is that going to be?
So obviously part of what we were talking about in that segment was physician-assisted suicide. If you go to deathwithdignity.org, you can see what the current state of laws is around the country. And if you happen to be someone who is facing a decision like that, or you have a friend or loved one who is, it's good to know ahead of time what the requirements and options are. But it is hard to put forethought into something that you didn't want to think about in the first place. And as we're discussing in the course of this episode, death is just one of those things that people don't want to think about. But thinking about it and acting are the only ways that you have any control over the situation. I have a friend, somebody I've known since my high school days, who was in the fall diagnosed with thyroid cancer. She had her voice started to sound strange to her, and she couldn't figure out why. And they finally said, "Oh, one of your vocal cords is paralyzed for some reason." And they did imaging, and she was seeing an older doctor who was not up to speed on the current state of thyroid cancer, which is what she ended up having. She had a fairly large tumor. And basically he said, you're going to be, dead within 6 months to a year, and there's nothing we can do for you. Thyroid cancer is very treatable, but in a weird way, as horrifying as the experience was for her, she was able to make a kind of peace with it, in that she started thinking about, okay, so if I'm going to die, then what I want to happen with my body when I'm done. What? Mm-hmm. And she did a lot of different kinds of research. She said, I don't want a ton of money to go into this. Because funerals are very, very expensive. Mm-hmm. Even cremation is expensive. Mm-hmm. Expensive. If you have any kind of a gathering around it, and they try to sell you a lot of stuff. In addition, they want to make it as expensive as possible.
You're a consumer even after you're dead.
Exactly. She came upon this program where you can become basically compost. They just put your body somewhere and you decompose. Mm-hmm. And so she decided that. She said, I picked out my shroud. I know what's... She was able to go through this process, and not that it wasn't horrifying, and not that she wasn't, frightened by it or whatever, but eventually she found other doctors, and she's received treatment, and she seems to be doing well now, although worse for the wear, because she had a pretty significant amount of tumor.
Yes.
But it completely changed her point of view about it.
Perspective is everything.
Yeah, and the rest of us have a difficult time looking at ourselves that way. It's not like any of us are going to avoid dying.
You can try and run and hide. It ain't going to work.
So far as we know, right? It as terrible as it was, I've kind of thought of it as a gift that she was able to really come to terms with it.
Imagine the kind of days she has now, having realized that she's not dying in 6 months.
Yeah.
Not dying tomorrow.
Right.
Versus she did before they found the cancer.
Right.
Totally different.
And a thing that I think about, just because both of my parents died of cancer, is that the number of days that she had where there was a vague feeling that something was wrong, but she couldn't put her finger on it, and the mental games that you play with yourself, trying to pretend that those things, are not important or salient or
just
anything to worry about. Yeah. Shake it off. And
again, it goes back to people are so afraid of the monster in the closet. Mm-hmm. Children grow up, there's a monster under my bed. And until a flashlight gets pulled out, they will convince themselves that monster lives there. They take the exact same approach with death. They are so afraid of it that they will do absolutely anything and everything to avoid talking about it. But it's going to happen. It's going to happen to somebody they know, and it's going to happen to them. So with your friend, as horrific as it was to be told, you've got 6 months.
Really bluntly as well, too.
Yeah. Which was a total guess.
Yeah, right.
But she was in a place where mentally and physically she was capable of setting up her death.
Right.
Of preparing things in the way that she wanted while she could. Whereas a lot of the times people don't get that opportunity.
No.
It happens and they're completely helpless. And those surrounding them, their friends and their family, are helpless too because they've never had the conversations. I can't count the number of people I've talked to who have a significant other, have children, and they have not made plans. They have not discussed the possibility that they are, something could happen.
Yeah,
they got insurance on their car and on their house,
right?
But they don't have any plans set up for their own demise.
I'm completely guilty of that. My wife and I did not actually take care of this while our children were minors. Like, we had a vague idea, but we didn't have a firm clue. Like, if something happens to both of us, what happens to the kids? Where do they go? That seems like a pretty basic thing. You're providing for your children after your death. Like, even to make sure that they're taken care of, to make sure that somebody's going to wipe their nose and give them a bed to sleep in.
Where are they going to go?
Where are they going to go? And we just couldn't come to terms with it for whatever reason. It was too complicated for us. I don't know. We had one thought and then we had another thought, and it's like we're terrible at buying furniture too. So it's not surprising that this is an issue. But we didn't actually get down to doing it, all the estate planning stuff, until my wife was going to Uganda on not a medical mission, but a medical mission. You can't call it that because you get trapped up in the government. Anyway, and like, okay, well, you're going halfway around the world to a third world country with, sanitation issues and disease issues and one thing or another. So we should probably put pen to paper on this. And we finally did, and I think things need to be updated now or whatever, because it's been a few years. But it was so hard.
But therein lies the problem with easy and the problem with comfort. You live in a first world country.
Right.
So those things aren't going to happen to me.
Right.
But you're going to a third world country. Oh, we better get our ducks in a row.
Exactly. And it should be. You're more likely to have a problem in those places, but is it dramatically different?
No.
Especially if you're a first world person going into a third world country, knowing everything about trying to keep yourself safe.
How many car accidents happen in a third world country?
Not that many cars.
How many cars are here?
Plenty, a lot.
The likelihood of something happening is equal.
Yeah.
It's just a different thing.
Yeah. Different thing.
That's it. And it's that forced realization that, you know what? Yes, I have a roof. I walk 5 feet for fresh water. Everything's fairly easy. If I need food, I can go to the corner store. Bottom line is you're going to die.
Right.
And you may die going to the corner store. So tell the people who matter to you that you care. Make sure if there are people who you are responsible for, that you feel obligated to, make sure that when you're gone, they are taken care of properly. It's not hard. Yeah, it's uncomfortable. Yes, it's sad and depressing and all those things, but trust me, watching the only person who matters to you die in front of you, that conversation gets real easy.
So what kind of, and we've talked about the fact that you wrote the book, what kind of changes have you seen yourself making based on this realization?
You know, that's an entirely different podcast too, because we'd have to go back into my history and family and everything else. But being with Angela before she got sick, when she was sick, and now that she's dead, I just don't fucking care anymore. I just don't. And as we've discussed, and I've told this to many people, there has not been a day that has gone by in the last year where I haven't thought about putting a bullet in my head. But I don't feel I'm done honoring her properly. So I need to, put that aside for now and continue to do what I'm doing. As far as my evolution, I don't hold anything back anymore. Somebody asks me a question, they're getting an answer, and I don't give a flying fuck if they like it or not. And what's interesting is my level of care and empathy to others is drastically higher. And part of that is because I think maybe some people have no idea of how lucky they are. But I also know that there's plenty of people who have had shit luck. They've had horrible lives. They have been put through meat grinder after meat grinder after meat grinder, and they just need someone to listen. They just need someone that's willing to tell them that, you know what, yeah, it's been hard, but you still have a choice if you want to make things different. Better is a subjective term.
When my best friend passed away when we were in our early 40s, and we have very different family trajectories, like nuclear family trajectories. I got married early, had kids early. He got married later, had kids later. At the time that he died in his early 40s, he had 3 sons under 7. He had multiple myeloma. He had a cancer that typically occurs in older people, much older people, 15, 20 or more years older than we were at the time. And for at least 6 months after he passed, every day, like you're saying, what I thought was, it really should have been me. Because you're never done with your kids, but you're done-ish. You get to 90%, and then that final 10% takes the rest of your natural life, right? And he was really just starting with his kids. It's like logically, if there was any logic to this at all, it should have been me, and he should still be there for his kids, for his wife, for all the people that I met who. He was an Air Force colonel he was Air Guard colonel at the Pentagon. All the people that worked for him, all the people that had worked for him over the years, he had a greater impact on people than I could think about at that point. It was devastating to me. And yet, that as strong and terrible as that feeling was, I did come to terms with the fact that it wouldn't make any difference. Like I would stop feeling shitty about it for sure, because I would stop feeling, because I would be done. But I couldn't fix the situation, and to be completely honest, I have like forever survivor guilt, because his family was so far away from me that there wasn't a whole lot I could do to help out on a day-to-day basis, and I was maybe so injured by the process of the, losing him, the importance of his life and mine, and then just the process of his actual death. Like I got there a few hours before he died, and it was just this nasty downhill slide. And that was so, like, I don't want to take away from anybody that had PTSD in an actual, horrific battle situation or whatever, but that's really what it was. I relived moments over and over again of around his death.
Well, two things with that is, one, that trauma that people experience watching somebody die cannot be replaced, but it also varies. If it's a stranger, that's one thing. If that is a quote-unquote enemy, that's another. But if it's somebody that you care for deeply, that's next level.
Yeah.
It's different. It's just different. It's not better or worse or higher or lower. It's just different. Now, you mentioned something, you used a word, and that's one of the things with the evolution of myself since Angela's death, is words have a lot more meaning, and you use the word logic. It doesn't exist.
No.
There is no rhyme. There is no reason. And anybody who says there's a plan clearly has not been hit like this. There's no plan. This is just random fucking bad luck.
Yeah.
That certain people die in certain ways that does not fit who they are. There's no deserving of it.
No.
I've had conversations with people, and they go down the religious road and things like that, or they go down the spiritual road. Karma is something that gets discussed a lot probably now in the last 5, 10, 15 years more than before, at least in the first world. And I've told a lot of people that karma can go fuck itself.
Yeah.
Because they cannot tell me what Angela did to deserve what she went through.
Well, there can't be anything. That's in the course of a normal life.
If there's some cosmic balance on an individual basis, please explain it to me.
Yeah.
So far, no one's been able to do that, and I don't expect anyone ever will.
No.
Now, and again, going back again to words, a lot of people will talk about, oh, I'm sorry to hear that you lost your wife. And in the book, I make it very clear, I didn't lose her.
Yeah, you know exactly where she went and what happened.
She was stolen.
Yeah.
She was taken. Loss implies the ability to find, and I can't find her. She is gone. And the way she went, and it's not even the fact that she died. That sucks. Plain and simple. And I would do anything to undo that. But it's how she went. How the last 2 years of her life were because of, honestly, a fucked up, broken system. That's what bothers me. And that's the stuff that I want people to realize, that it's not going to go the way you want. It's not going to go the way it happens in movies. There's no Hollywood ending when you die. There's no final words and then you drift off.
Yeah.
You know, it took her body 4 hours to be finished dying. You know, she slowly suffocated to death over 4 hours. I would love for someone to explain to me why that even has to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. It shouldn't have to happen. No, my mom had leukemia, lymphoma, and the leukemia was being managed by the chemo that they were giving her, but the lymphoma was not, and was not going to. And as I said before, that she had the false hope that somehow it was going to restore the function of her lymphatic system to be taking this chemotherapy, and that was never going to happen. I don't know why. I don't know whoever told her that. And so her chest cavity is filling up with fluid, and they tapped it, drained it, and so she was able to breathe freely again for a while. And the interval kept getting shorter and shorter and shorter until finally the pulmonologist pulled us aside and said, look, this is too hard on me. Like, somebody needs to level with her. And it's like, well, why can't you do it? But it ended up being me. And the moment that I relived over and over again was actually just telling her and trying to get her to comprehend, what was up with that. And she didn't want to die on Christmas, and nobody wanted her to die on Christmas. And that's the day that she was, heading downward. And somewhere along the line, we took off the oxygen, and it was ours. And it's a terrible sound. It's a really awful sound.
Don't forget that.
No, you don't. You don't. You can't ever get it out of your head.
And I'm not trying to downplay the tragedy and the pain that people go through when other people die.
Yeah.
You get the phone call, so and so's dead. Yeah. Or you find out, oh yeah, Billy died 2 months ago. What? Like, I understand the shock with that.
Right.
But when you are in the presence of someone and they die, it's different. Mm. It does not go away.
No. My dad lasted like 9 months after my mom, and we didn't even know he was sick. So whatever was going on, I think he had been sick for maybe quite some time before that. But because she had so much going on, he kind of let things go, and his doctor completely lied to him about what was up. He gave him all sorts of excuses for the symptoms he was having. But I was supposed to go to the Olympia to shoot Stan Efferding, World's Strongest Bodybuilder thing, and actually had a contract with Inzer to do it and all this stuff, and ended up not being able to go because he slipped into a coma maybe the Friday before, and it took him 8 days to die because his body kept making changes that kept perpetuating things, even though he was not able to take fluids. He was at home, and like his kidneys decided to start sparing fluid so that he would just keep going. And it was excruciating. And you just like somebody, and you go into, with both of my parents, it's like you go in and you have that conversation. You have a conversation that says, look, you can let go. Like, I'm dealing with this, and everyone understands where you are and what's going on. And if you're holding on for a particular reason, you can let go.
Yeah. However, the car is on autopilot.
Yeah.
And
Fuck.
And as much as that person's personality and essence may be good with dying, the bodies may have some other ideas.
Yeah.
Which just makes it worse. And again, that goes back to my point of, why do we allow the people we care for to be forced to go through this?
Yeah.
It makes no sense. But because nobody wants to talk about their own mortality, they're not going to talk about anybody else's, and they just ignore it, which allows the system that we are all responsible for to continue to function as it is. And it makes no sense. And, I've been, especially since the book came out, which was in September, I've had a lot of people tell me either face to face or through social media that, look, you're a little dark, or you're a little depressing, or, you're a little intense. I don't fucking care.
Yeah.
What is more important than this?
Yeah.
Your duvet cover?
Yeah.
Is that more important? Or the scratch on your car? Is that more important? No. Picture that one person that you would do anything for. Now picture them dying. If you have not run that reel in your head, you are shortchanging your time with them now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I promise you, not only is death coming, but so is regret for a lot of people. The things they wanted to say, the things they wanted to do. And my parents, you'd mentioned yours, mine are a perfect example. Nuclear, husband, wife, 2 kids, dad worked, mom stayed home, raised the kids, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to keep working until the kids are off and we've got a nest egg, and then we'll travel. Kids went off. He felt like working a little bit longer. She got sick. And then she got really sick. Guess who never traveled?
Yeah.
Guess who died?
Yeah.
And then guess who died after that?
It's a familiar story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How'd that plan work out for you?
Yeah.
And again, those are two people who never, in all the conversations around the dinner table and at parties, never once was the concept of death ever discussed. I can list off everything else. Mm-hmm. Some good stuff, some bad stuff, but never death. Nobody wants to face up to it. And, you know, the Tea Time with the Reaper, the reason I labeled it, I called it that, is because talking about death needs to be a comfortable, everyday conversation. It's like coffee talk. It has to be that simple for people if they're going to grasp it. They shouldn't be afraid of it. And as far as the Reaper's concerned, if anybody's familiar with the concept of that entity, they're not killing you. The Reaper doesn't kill you. They are simply a conduit from this life to the next.
Right.
But because it's a skeleton,
it's
scary.
It's scary, yeah. I was going to say with both of my parents, it was the same kind of situation where they were going to travel, they were going to retire or whatever. And then my mom worked until 3 weeks before she died, and she knew she was, not doing well. She knew she was not doing well, and she couldn't continue to work. But with both of them, the conversation had to be had to say, look, this is like with my dad. He had just terrible, awful amount of metastasis in his brain, and it was not going to get better. And with my mom, her lungs, and both of them said the same words back to me. I guess I'm going to have to die. It's like, yeah.
No shit.
Yeah. Exactly.
Most of the time, when we try to protect ourselves or others from the bad things, we just make it worse. When people lie, it doesn't make it easier. It just makes it worse. It just postpones it. And then the credit and then the interest starts piling up. The bill's always going to come due. And when it comes to death, it's the same thing. Yeah, but you know what? And it's admirable. But imagine if all these conversations, all these points that we've talked about during this episode, if people just sat down and had a conversation now. Have it over dinner, have it after dinner, have it over breakfast, whatever. Have the conversation, because chances are it's not going to be convenient if you put it off. You're going to be left with questions. You're going to not know what to do, how to respond. You're not trained for the event. Your mind has not ever once considered this happening. So how do you think it's going to go? It's going to be a nightmare.
Well, I think that's probably the best takeaway that we can leave anybody with, that be willing to have the conversation and actually have it with the people that you care about this topic. Mm-hmm. And don't shy away from it, because it's not going to shy away from you.
Nope. The Reaper's coming one way or the other.
Exactly.
The question is, will you be ready?
Exactly. Tell us where people could find the book.
The book currently is available on Amazon, both in paperback and Kindle. There's also some limited edition hardcovers still available. Tea Time with the Reaper on Instagram, on Facebook, slightly different on Twitter just because of the length. And then teatimewiththereaper.com actually takes you straight to the Amazon page.
Okay, that's awesome.
If anybody, and this is another thing that has really happened in the last number of months, if there's anybody who has experienced something similar, going through something similar, and they need to talk to somebody about it, reach out.
That's a brave thing, and I applaud you for being willing to do that. I've had people just randomly do that with me before, and it is it's cathartic, but it also has a cost.
I'm well aware.
Yeah,
and I'm down.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Derek.
Thank you, Jim.
All right. And thank you for listening. You should check out Derek's book and podcast, both titled Tea Time with the Reaper. I'm at the Jim McD on all the social media, and you can find me every week with Silent Mike on our podcast, 50% Facts, which is available on all platforms. Remember, being nice doesn't cost you anything, but it can mean a whole lot to somebody else.